Shauna Duggins. So those two episodes are so incredible. The fight between Ruth and Debbie in the hospital is so intense, and it really sort of illuminates how when women feel powerless, they lash out at each other, and that is what is a theme in Ruth and Debbie's relationship. So I'd love to hear from you two about filming that scene and what it was like going through such an intense confrontation.
Definitely. I feel like Betty and I talk about our characters and their relationship constantly. I feel like this scene.
So warm.
Thank you. And yours so cold. It's really making me cool down.
I'm heating up.
Oh.
And we're equal.
Room temp. I think that Ruth and Debbie are soulmates, and so much of why they both want to be a part of Glow, I think, has to do with each other. And the fight in 7 really has been building since the first episode. In season 2, we get to see so much of how Ruth and Debbie were friends even before the fight, and what sort of problems there were in that friendship that led to that infidelity, Ruth doing that to her friend, which in the first season it was sort of never really explained. And so I love that fight scene because you just get to see both sides of like all of this pent up anger and why both of them have maybe not always been the best of friends to each other, but at the same time there's such a deep love there that's worth fighting for, and it's so emotional. And when I read the scene, I was just like, yes. And then when Betty and I were in there shooting it, I felt like it just poured out of us. We were like, nobody come in the room. Just leave us to it.
Agreed.
You got to give us more than that.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think that some of the things that were maybe wrong with their friendship before this friendship fissure explosion happened in season 1 was that I think Debbie probably did like 80% of the talking at lunch and wasn't listening to her friend and seeing that her friend needed her. I think that and in ways where Debbie feels powerless in certain areas of her life, I think that in season 2 we see her kind of gaining power from interactions with Ruth and putting Ruth down, which Ruth doesn't deserve. And even though Ruth, she deserves a lot of it, but she betrayed me, but it doesn't mean, I don't know, I think that while they are very different, I think they're both very lonely. And, I think if it was a different friendship, something like this would have happened and they would have never spoken again. But I do think that they are kind of soul mirrors in a way and need each other. So it is worth fighting for, literally.
And Shauna, that's the fight that comes before it, or the match, where it had to be so tricky to choreograph because you don't want to know for sure whether Debbie's doing it on purpose. So there has to be this underlying tension through the whole thing. Tell us about the process of putting that scene together.
With all the wrestling with the girls, it's kind of a collaboration. It's really fun. We get the script and we go and we talk to our producers and writers and say, where is the story going? What's important? And then from there, we'll start to play with ideas, and we'll then talk to the girls and see what moves in there do you love? What do you want to do? Where do we want to go with it? And then we'll play and trial and error and try something and throw it out and try something else and throw it out. And then they come in with their characters and things that you thought would look great. You go, and then they throw out something that is 10 times better than what you thought it could be, because they creatively have this story in their mind too with the characters that they know better than anybody. So we play and collaborate, and like you said, the tension had to be there and the story's the most important, and then the wrestling moves have to tell that story. But Debbie's on coke, and so it heightens it, and you don't know if it's on purpose or just because she's in a heightened place that it just happens. And so that's kind of where we're going with the story of it. And I mean, like you said, they both feel bad, but they're both so emotionally invested, but right and wrong. And so it's fun to put all that in the fight.